The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
The Battle of Evergreen Park continuing right now. The Sweet 16 is happening. By the end of Tuesday, we will be down to 8 to see who is the best of Evergreen Park. My name is Chris Lanuti. Welcome into the EP Podcast. A great local guest down here today. Joining me in studio. About halfway through the interview, I realized this guy is a big deal. You're going to want to hear this one. And with school returning, there is something the village and the mayor have been working on for years, and I'm going to illustrate that and put a big, shiny spotlight on it before this show is over. But looking at the matchups right now in the Battle of Evergreen Park, by the time Tuesday has ended, again down to 8, Porter Cullen's and Tavern in the Green are head-to-head right now. Spoke and Vine going up against Unidad. The winners of both of those matchups will face each other in the Elite 8. La Cocina Jalisciense head-to-head with Pappy's. The winner takes the comfort food bracket and will go up against the sweets bracket, where Wolf's Bakery and Cravings are head-to-head right now. Who has the best pizza? Rosangela's and Baracco's going at it right now. Beer versus breakfast. Bialy's against Heart's Saloon. In our fitness category, core fitness and physical therapy, trying to win that over Worry Taekwondo. And over at the Plaza, will it be Macy's or TJ Maxx? Voting on the Sweet 16 closes at the end of the date of this release, Tuesday, the 20th of August. The Elite 8 happens on Wednesday and Thursday. This episode of the EP Podcast and every episode brought to you by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. When you're setting up the kids for school, don't forget one of the most important things, a student checking account from the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. A debit card of their own, unlimited free in-network ATMs, an easy-to-use mobile banking app. Teens and young adults can start managing their money independently. I dropped my daughter off at college this weekend, did my best as dad to hold it all together as I gave her a hug and sent her on her way. She's got a debit card and an account from the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. And it's kind of fun that the accounts are linked because I can send her money and I can see where she's spending it at. No minimum to open, no minimum balance, no monthly maintenance fees. The First National Bank of Evergreen Park at 95th and Pulaski, member FDIC. Rich Daniels is sitting down here at the 9-Foot Homemade Oak Bar, and he's been on the show before, but by phone, so it's nice to have you down here. How are you?
I'm fine. It's great to be with you, Chris. Thanks for having me here today.
If people don't know what Rich does, he is one heck of a musician, and you have an orchestra. You play in Evergreen Park, a public concert, I believe, every year. Like, how many years have you done it for? I know this year it's the Labor Day show. I think you did that last year. I don't know if it was always on Labor Day with fireworks and things like that, but I mean, it is something you've been doing for a while in the EP.
It has been. This is the 35th year we've done this concert in Evergreen Park. We brought funds from our union, the Chicago Federation of Musicians, to help fund this. The musicians, all 45 of them, work for what we call community service scale, and they're generous with their time and their talent. And we do about 4 or 5 of these shows around the Chicagoland area every year. The fact that I live in Evergreen has made me proud to be able to bring it to Evergreen once a year, too, or actually twice. We do a Christmas concert, too. So the Labor Day celebration has been on there. This concert's been on Labor Day for the past 3 years now. And Mayor Burke said we're going to keep it permanently on Labor Day. It's great. We're over at 91st and California at James Sexton Park. It's a wonderful venue.
Right over there.
A lot of fun and big crowds they get, and they do fireworks afterwards. And this will be year 35 of a concert in Evergreen, though. So it's been the orchestra is the City Lights Orchestra. And actually, we're celebrating 50 years of the orchestra, which terrifies me, on the 26th of August. We had our first rehearsal 50 years ago on the 26th of August. And at that point, we were called the Big Band Machine, specializing in music from the big band era, and that morphed into City Lights over the years. But it's been a heck of a run. We've been very, very fortunate and blessed in many, many ways.
You and I have a few little connections, which is kind of fun because, like, as we're sitting there talking before we started, I was like, you know, I played saxophone. I think you are a sax player,
that's
right?
my only instrument. Yeah.
We both had the same high school band director at Brother Rice, Leo Henning.
Yeah, he was extraordinary. Leo was a character, and he was a talented man, and he had what I loved about him is Leo not only was a great educator, but he had this great professional career as well for all the years he was teaching. He ran the Lou Breeze Orchestra. And ironically, he was the convention orchestra at the Democratic National Convention in 1968. So for that big convention in Chicago, Leo led the orchestra for the convention, and we only had one other convention in Chicago since then in '96, and now we're having one this coming week. But that was a big deal back in the day. Leo was the convention orchestra for the Democratic National Convention in '68. Wonderful man. His son PJ, another wonderful band director, musician, talented, generous, giving people who I love dearly. And Leo was very much a mentor to me, and PJ's been very much a friend. So it's been great.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting because I would imagine you were at a point like I was when I was younger. Like I got to a point I got through playing in the band, and I loved playing my saxophone, and I just didn't think that there was a career in playing an instrument. And you took that leap, man. I mean, like, I think that's cool because you took that leap, because I don't know, there was a lot of kids that when they're younger, they get into music, but they're not really sure, like, can I do this forever? And you had a little bit of faith in yourself for sure. Take me through that decision making and getting to be what you are right now.
I was very fortunate in many ways. I had amazing parents who were not skilled in music at all. They both just pretty much got through high school, and they weren't into the arts or anything like that, but they saw the passion I had for music, and they encouraged it all as much as I could ever remember. They were amazing that way, especially for blue-collar people from the South Side, having one of their children go into the arts like this at a level that's completely unknown. How do you make a living at this? Leo Henning was very encouraging. Many others, a man named Jim Moore, was extraordinarily encouraging. But the irony for me, Chris, is that there was a counselor. Chris and I both went to Brother Rice High School. I'm class of 78. He's much younger, obviously.
Class of 95.
There you go.
I appreciate you making me feel younger. That's still old. Like right now there's kids listening to us like in their 20s, and they're you're both old.
Well, I had 4 children, and all of them are in that age range. But when I was at Brother Rice, there was a counselor named Mr. Cummings, who was a wonderful man, and certainly had the best interests of his students at heart. And for me, he did everything he could to talk my parents and me out of allowing me to go into the music industry. He painted a picture of desperation, poverty, drugs, loose women. And I'm thinking, your point is? No. Man,
if I would have had him as a counselor, I might have gotten into
But he really pushed hard to stop me. And he said, use it as something you just do on the side. And I had no interest. I was gangbusters. I'm going to do this. And God knows I've been very fortunate in more ways than I could ever count that it happened the way it did. But he tried to. But the point of my story with Mr. Cummings is that he was a counselor at Brother Rice. My son, who's also named Rich, is 34 years old. He'll be 35 next month, and he lives here in the village, and he has a beautiful wife, Maggie, and 2 wonderful children, our grandchildren, Lucy and Patrick. And he is now a counselor at Brother Rice.
Oh, that's funny.
And he occupies the office that was occupied by Mr. Cummings.
Who told you not to get into music? Oh, I'm sure you've told that story too. Oh, yeah.
I've told a number of people. But the irony of my son now sits in that office of the counselor who did everything he could to prevent me from going into music. Now, I'm not saying Mr. Cummings still wasn't right. You never know. So,
right.
If my mother was alive, I'm 64 years old. If Mom was still alive, she'd still be waiting for me to get a real job someday. But no, I mean, Chris, I've been fortunate in ways I can't even count. I mean, I worked in the television industry for 11 of the years of my career in Chicago, and was a music director on amazing television shows, the show Empire. I did all 102 episodes of Empire as the music director for that show. And then I've worked on Chicago Med, and I've worked on the show Boss that shot here in Chicago. I've produced several things for PBS. I've toured nationally and internationally. I can't even begin to count my blessings. I've been fortunate in more ways than Leo Henning. And people like that in my life when I was very young were instrumental in encouraging me, directing me, and helping me achieve the vision and the goals I had in my mind that I was hoping to someday achieve. So, lucky guy.
What is that like? I mean, I think this is fascinating. We have somebody here that lives in Evergreen Park that does music on television shows. I mean, is it the way that I kind of picture it? Like they put the show up on a screen and then you're trying to play along with it? Or are you composing songs and then the director is later saying, okay, I want to insert this here, I want to put this here?
What you're describing is very much the way music is scored for television and film, at a scoring stage.
Okay.
That's another topic, by the way. I've been heading up a group to try to build a scoring stage in Chicago. It's a very heavy lift. It's an $80 million project. And literally yesterday, the city of Chicago came on board and gave us the land land and the space where we're going to hopefully make it happen. All we have to do now is raise the funds. But to your question about how it's done on television, my role on Empire was the on-camera music director. So we recorded some music for the show, but Empire was a music show. So we had all these extraordinary guest stars, Alicia Keys, Snoop Dogg, Jennifer Hudson, Patti LaBelle. I mean, for 6 years, it was 102 episodes of amazing guest stars. And we would put musicians on camera around them. And we'd want to make sure it looked real, and then we'd coach the cast, we'd coach the musicians to make it all look and feel right. The score was done by somebody in LA. The songs were produced largely in Chicago, and then sometimes we would be allowed to take the hip-hop songs and the R&B songs that were on the show and then sweeten them. We would add brass, winds, strings, percussion. We would add additional vocalists. My production partner, a man named Jeff Morrow, one of the finest vocalists in America today, became the vocal producer for everything on Empire. And it was a great run of 102 episodes. We put over 400 young people on camera. These were all high-paying union gigs for SAG-AFTRA, the American Federation of Musicians, and they were great opportunities. Empire, on its first episode of season 2, we had a viewership of 29 million people. Those are sports numbers, for an episodic television show. So it was created by Lee Daniels, who's no relation to me, but people wondered for the first couple of years, is he related to Lee?
Yeah, they're like, how did this guy get this job?
Right. I think I'm going to let him think that. Let him think we're brothers from another mother. I'm all over it. And Lee became a friend, and we worked together on the show. And Danny Strong was the other co-creator of Empire. Danny's a young, talented man who's gone on to create, he did the television show Dope Sick that was out last year. He did all 10 episodes of that. He wrote and directed that. He also was with Lee when they did the motion picture The Butler together. He also did another movie called Game Changer about the 2008 campaign in a presidential race. And yeah, tons of talented people coming through Chicago to do these shows. I've been lucky to be a part of them in some way on a number of them. Like I think I worked on 12 different shows over 11 years. But to see television and film come to Chicago or Illinois in that way has been incredible. We never thought it would happen. They built a 51-acre movie studio at 16th and Rockwell called CineSpace, where they have 60 stages. It's the largest.
I had no idea something like that.
Right, no one does.
Wow.
It's 51 acres, 60 stages. It's massive. It's the largest.
16th and Rockwell.
16th and Rockwell, the old Ryerson Steelworks. They took it over and converted it, multi-million-dollar conversion. It's extraordinary. And now they built more studios at 31st and Kedzie. Yeah. 10 more studios going up there. And now there's another company called the Field Studios building at Diversey and Pulaski. I just toured those studios 2 weeks ago. They've got 5 stages there right now. And now there's more stages being built at 79th and Stony called the Regal Studios. Chicago is having a renaissance of production for television and film. So a scoring stage, which is what I'm helping to try and build, is a necessary piece of infrastructure that Illinois, Chicago, and the Midwest desperately needs, where the music will be recorded here in this community with the very talented musicians we have. When John Williams wrote the score to the Lincoln movie, he wanted to use the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Well, you're John Williams, you're going to get what you want pretty much. But he wanted to use Chicago Symphony because they're amongst the best musicians on the planet. So to do that, they had to bring mobile trucks into Chicago, into Orchestra Hall, record them there, and create a scoring stage out of nothing to a very expensive level. I'm sure it cost millions of dollars to do. But
he's John Williams.
He's John
so
Williams,
he
and he wanted the CSO,
right.
And he got it, and it was fabulous. But to have a scoring stage here would make this a very accessible project and process for anybody who wants to score music in Chicago for these shows. So the high hopes for that. And it's a great experience to be a part of it. And it was, like I said, there were 11 or 12 shows I worked on. And Empire was the biggest and the longest run. 6 years. Shows don't run 6 years.
That's amazing. And I think this is great. Like we're going to come in, we're going to talk a little bit about your Labor Day show coming up, and I've learned so much just off those couple of questions about what's going on. And what I've also
I strayed from your questions.
Because what I've also learned is I've learned you're kind of a big deal. Like people don't realize you got somebody who's kind of a big deal here living in the EP. And so as a big deal, is it a competition to get onto the City Lights Orchestra? Like, I mean, is this like one of those things where people want to play for you and there's a process for them to even become part of your group?
Sure. There is no audition process for an orchestra like ours. It's largely word of mouth and people who've been with us. Some have been with us for decades.
People you know, too.
Yeah.
People you're like, that one's good.
The best way for most musicians to get into an orchestra like ours in any community is to know somebody in there and come on as a sub one day. Get to know people, be a sub, do a good job as a sub, get another subbing opportunity, and grow from there. And that's the way most people have come to us over the years. And then some people stay, and we bring them on for decades. So it's we've been very fortunate with that. And again, the orchestra's been a part of extraordinary Chicagoland communities. We played the opening of Millennium Park 20 years ago. We played for every mayor that's been here since my Actually, the first gig we ever worked in February of 1975, I was 14 years old. We had just started the orchestra, was for Mayor Daley. Not the one most people remember, but his father.
That's the original right there.
The original Mayor Daley. It was towards the end of his life. It was 1974. He died in 76. But it was at Ridge Country Club on the South Side. There were 12 of us in the band. We knew 11 songs. We were terrified. It was just a big political party at the country club. 500 people jammed in to see the mayor. A bunch of kids in the corner making noise. Who cared? But we had a guest artist that day. He was a recently elected alderman who played some piano and said, "Can I play with you guys?" I said, "Sure." I said, "We don't know a lot of songs and we're just feeling our way here, but no, you'll be fine." He sat down and he played a couple of songs with us. That was then newly elected Alderman Ed Burke. And I've mentioned to him many times over the years, he missed his boat. He could have, left that political wagon and jumped into music, everyone.
Yeah, that would have been a very different life right there. So this group that we're going to see on the 2nd, and I know a lot of people have already seen them, but some may not have. How big is it, and what are they going to hear?
Sure. This is the City Lights Orchestra. There's 45 musicians. We have, of the 45, 6 really talented vocalists. Extraordinary vocalists, some of whom have been with us for many years. They're going to hear a wide range of American popular music. So everything from what we call boomer rock for music that was like popular in the 60s and 70s to some of the more contemporary stuff, some patriotic stuff we always do at this show. We always do a tribute to the armed forces, which people embrace, and we invite people from the various branches of the service to stand up when we play their song, or if you have a loved one in the armed service, we invite them to stand up in tribute to their loved one who served or is currently serving. We do something that allows people to sing with us. "You Are My Sunshine." There's a wide range of music. The vocalists range from Bruce Matty, who was a founding member of the Chicago band, the New Colony Six, Suzanne Palmer, who's been with us for years, Linda Clifford, 5-time Grammy-nominated artist, Mark Madsen, extraordinary voice who sings in the style of Frank Sinatra, Bradford Newquist, another extraordinary standards singer, and then Patty Homan, a newer addition to our entourage. Patty is from Cork, Ireland, and he is an extraordinary Irish tenor. And in this community, he plays very well. People love Patty.
This is the place for him to be.
And he has a TV show that I produced for him called I Am Ireland that aired on PBS, and it continues to air to this day. When something gets picked up by PBS, they play it over and over and over again. Everyone knows that. But his show, I Am Ireland's had over 1,000 airings nationwide since we aired it first in the spring of 21. So in 3 years, it's had over 1,000 airings. And it features the City Lights Orchestra with him singing. It was filmed during the pandemic, so it's in pandemic style so that everybody is in a little box and everybody had to film themselves at their own homes. We almost killed our video music editor because he got 1,200 tracks he had to turn into a 1-hour television show. But it's available online. I Am Ireland, Patty Homan, City Lights Orchestra. We filmed Patty and his 3 musicians at Old St. Pat's on the altar. Everybody at a distance, masks. It was crazy to work.
It had to be nuts. It had to be nuts. I remember so my daughter started at Brother Ice. She also plays saxophone. So a bunch of saxophone players. Saxophone's the theme here. Rich plays it as well. So do I. And she played it. And her freshman year was the first year of it. So it was already complicated. Like she barely got to go to class. I remember they tried to put on a band concert like at the end of that year in the Brother Ice gym. And the kids had never played with each other. And it was like first time they were all going to play it together, and they were sitting like with these big open spaces. And it was like that is one of the things, like it probably just killed music programs, made it harder for you to do your art. That had to be just one of the most difficult times.
It was the most difficult time in the lifetime of anybody in the creative arts. I could tell you that all of our musicians are union musicians. They belong to the Chicago Federation of Musicians, a subsidiary of the AFM, and that we realized, as some other sectors did, 100% unemployment. It wasn't like some of them were working and some of them were not. It was 100% unemployment, and it was horrible. So, and I mean, I'm an older person, and I've been established. I've been blessed, like I said, in many ways I can count. So it didn't affect me the way I watched it affecting many, especially younger players who were trying to raise families or start careers or whatnot, and they were dying economically and artistically. Not being able to play and not being able to be in performance spaces. This went on for a while. I mean, this started on March 13th. I remember we were shooting what was the last episode of Empire, season 6.
Oh, there's a note of it now. There's a new book out. There's a new book about the crisis with the city, and I guess the EP podcast is mentioned in it because the guy who runs the Southside Irish Parade came on our show and said he wasn't going to cancel the parade for a stupid virus. Yeah. And then it became like a big thing in Lori Lightfoot's office, and then all of a sudden it became like And I don't know if that's the exact quote. You can find the book, though. It's really funny. Like, we got mentioned as we were in the middle of the whole thing suddenly.
Yeah.
We're like a 2-paragraph thing.
Wow.
But yeah, it was like,
well, we shut the world down.
Crazy times. Crazy times when it happens. And then, like, we were just talking beforehand, my son, Nick, is over at Most Holy Redeemer, and he's taking up drums this year, and he's going into the 4th grade.
How wonderful.
And you were like, oh, they have a program again. And I'm like, yeah, because it died. Like, that was the other thing. Like, I think music's really important for kids. I'm sure you agree for that.
All 4 of our children played none of them pursued it, but all 4 of them played in the band program in grade school and high school.
Yeah, I made them all start. Like, the middle guy, like, he played trumpet for a couple years and he lost interest in it. And I'm not going to force you to do it.
Right.
But the oldest one now, you know, playing saxophone, and she's going to go play it in, I don't know which band at U of I, but they've offered her for a couple of different ones.
How wonderful.
And she's got it sitting upstairs right now getting ready to move. And it's with all of her stuff. She's bringing her sax with her. And he's just starting out the drums. And I think it's so important for kids to at least give that a shot, because I think it's great for them, and it's good developmentally.
Absolutely. You access a part of your brain that you don't access in other ways with music. Music brings you to other spots of awareness and intellectual activity that you may not have. Actually, music and math are very closely connected. And so, but the skills you do, and you look at the band programs in many successful high schools and in grade school programs, a lot of the children in those programs tend to be at the tops of their classes for other disciplines. So they gravitate towards this too. And I think it only helps to enhance their intelligence and their ability to cognitively process things. So it's a great benefit to allow your children to experience playing a musical instrument at some point in their lives. Chris, for years, I did a lot of corporate shows. I was the music director for McDonald's Corporation for 25 years. We did shows around the country, and then we did shows for other huge corporations, Motorola, IBM. Oh my gosh, I can't even name them all. But we talked to a lot of the execs, and we'd interact with a lot of the people who were running these people from the C-suite people. And some of them had a musical background, and all of them wished they did. It was extraordinary when we allowed them to be guests inside the orchestra in whatever town or city we were doing a show in, and we would we would allow them to become a part of the orchestra and dredge up their old skills. It was life-changing and life-affirming to them. Music is... It's an indelible quantity. I mean, it really is. You can't touch it. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You know, we look at instruments. We look at notes on the page. It has nothing to do with what we hear and how we perceive it. And it lasts a microsecond. It passes through our minds so quickly. Yet, you talk to people who have Alzheimer's, and they can't remember what they had for breakfast today, but they can remember a song they learned 60 years ago. There's something in the way music affects our lives, and to allow children to experience it at an early age is so important. Every parent should allow their child to be participating in a music program at some level, at some early stage of their life. It'll be good for them for the rest of their lives. So, big fan of watching music take a part in young people's lives. Good for you with your children.
Thank you. Rich Daniels is a superstar. If you didn't know it before this interview, you know it now. I mean, I think we could sit down here for 2 hours. It's unfortunately a half-hour show, but if you want to go check out Rich and the City Lights Orchestra, and I would suggest you go do it, because as you can tell, these are some extremely talented people who have been doing this for a long time, and one heck of a show. James J. Sexton Park, 91st and Rockwell, on Labor Day, September the 2nd. It kicks off at 5 p.m. Food and beverages available for purchase out there. It's all brought to you by the Evergreen Park Recreation Department, and the fireworks follow the concert at dusk. Do you play during the fireworks? You get out of the way.
We don't. We're out of the way. And
good for you. I would get out of the way.
Can I make one quick plug?
Yes.
On September 10th, because I've had a lot of people in the village ask me about this. On September 10th, I'm guest conducting the Colorado Symphony at Red Rocks, which is as extraordinary
that's awesome.
venue. Yeah.
I've been to Red Rocks.
Okay.
Have you been there before?
I have. I conducted it back in 2016, the Colorado Symphony, with Warren Haynes, and it's a great experience, and we've had friends fly out. So if anybody wants to come join us on September 10th, come to Red Rocks. It'll be an experience of a lifetime. It's one of the great venues on the planet.
It is. It is one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences, and you must feel pretty lucky to be going out to Red Rocks.
To do it again? Yeah. I can't wait.
So get out to Red Rocks, or if you can't,
Evergreen Park, same thing.
Evergreen Park, same thing, just a couple days earlier on the 2nd of September over at Sexton Park. Rich, thanks so much for coming over.
Chris, thank you. My pleasure.
Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-5600. 1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them. It is now time for your EP podcast, Word on the Street, brought to you by Spoken Vine Wine Bar and Bottle Shop, northeast corner of 95th and Kedzie. A couple of weeks ago, I was out there with Frank Murray from the Evergreen Park Public Library. They have all kinds of new dishes there. The time before that, we were trying sangria. Summer is sangria time. I am very curious what we are going to get there next week. You don't have to wait. Try out all the delicious wines. Check out the incredible menu. If you find something you like, you bring it home afterwards from the bottle shop. A 21 and over establishment. See more at SpokenVineWines.com. Speaking of Frank and the library, looks like he's bringing back fantasy football. And I can't wait to find out how he's doing this, because I went to evergreenparklibrary.org and I saw there are 50 spots remaining for fantasy football. How are they doing that? I'm intrigued. You have until September the 3rd to get in on the library's fantasy football draft. That is the night of the draft at 7 p.m. going until 8:30, quick draft. There are reportedly prizes, and that's why I'm getting into it. And the thrill of defeating Frank at fantasy football. Again, evergreenparklibrary.org to register. Evergreen Park Elementary School District 124 has the back-to-school bash this week. Dr. Jenna Woodland, the superintendent, was just on the EP podcast last week. And go back and listen on demand to all the details and also hear a lot about what's going on in the district new this year. But the EP podcast will be out there this Thursday, August 22nd, kicking off at 5:30, going until 7 at Central Middle School. All kinds of fun for the kids, for adults, for the entire community. We look forward to seeing you out there for Back to School Bash. By now, looking at my calendar, CSX has closed the railroad crossing at 95th and Rockwell. If you have forgotten, I hope you're not trying to get from Western to Kedzie, or vice versa right now as you listen to the sound of my voice. This is going to last until September the 2nd. Enjoy looking for those alternate routes. The Illinois Tollway is hosting an iPass on-demand event on August 23rd, 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the Community Center, 3450 West 97th Street. iPass sticker tags, account management assistance, pay-by-plate service assistance, and more available. No appointment necessary. The date this episode comes out, Tuesday, August 20th. Water management is flushing fire hydrants. They're going to start over at 87th and Rockwell, working from 87th to 91st and Rockwell to California. If you are a resident there, you may see some cloudy water, and you are instructed to just run the faucet for a few minutes until the water clears up. If you have any questions, contact the Village Water Department, 708-229-3361. And I will break a little news here. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for it, but I was just invited yesterday to be out at Evergreen Park's Oktoberfest on Saturday, October the 5th, kicking off at 2 p.m. And of course, I accepted. So mark that date down. I know it's off in the future, but I'm looking forward to another riveting Stein hoisting competition. Now, before I get out of here, I saw a post on Facebook that was on the Village of Evergreen Park official page on the Facebook. And it was one of those monthly or quarterly messages from the Mayor Kelly Burke, who's been on the show so many times. And I thought about bringing her on to talk about this one thing. And I said, we won't bother her. She's very busy. I'll get her when I've got like 4, 5, 10, 20 questions. And this isn't even a question. This is just an observation. Because I read the message and it had all kinds of really great stuff in there, things that are coming up, updates on what's going on in the village. But the first paragraph, talking about back to school, reminding people to tell their kids, cross at the crosswalk, look both ways. And that's not because the kids are a problem, it's because the drivers are a problem. Because she goes on to remind people to be cautious, stop at the stop signs, obey the speed limits, especially in a school zone. This is still one of the major things that the village is constantly working on because people drive like lunatics. And in the summertime, when the kids are not all walking to school during rush hour, I think it gets really bad. And then people forget. And I always see the closest accidents, the near misses in the first couple of weeks of the school season. So let's try to avoid that. But it had me thinking that it feels like this has been an initiative from the mayor for a long time. So I went to the eppodcast.com. And you could do this right now if you want to. You can go to the eppodcast.com. There's a little magnifying glass, a little thing that signifies that you can search something on the site. And you could just put in a keyword and it'll find you every show that has to do with that keyword. So I just put in the keyword traffic. And the results I just had to share with you before the show is over. September 2021, very new to the office, Mayor Kelly Burke. On the program, the title of the show, Mayor Kelly Burke Needs Your Help. And the whole show is about traffic safety and a need to get that under control in the EP. In 2022, the mayor sits down here and talks about new pilot programs, experiments, all kinds of different ways to get people to reduce their speed and drive safely, not just for the children, but for every citizen in Evergreen Park. And then early 2023, she came back on this show and shared the results of all those experiments and talked about the things that worked. Like there was one thing that was really interesting and they weren't sure if they could put it everywhere because of snow plows, but where they reduced the size of a lane and made it thinner near the school because that just made people instinctively slow down. And then they tested the temporary speed signs, but there's certain places they needed them to be permanent. Take a listen.
And then we did purchase additional speed wagons, those radar speed wagons that can go to different locations throughout the village. And, I think that we found over the years that having that reminder, hey, you're going, 30 and it's a 20 really does make many people slow down. Not everybody, of course. But then we took that idea and ended up looking at stationary solar powered speed signs that we can put, at permanent locations. And we got a grant from AAA through, God bless Sarah Klein, the former chamber president, who's the manager at the Evergreen AAA and also a village resident. And she was instrumental in helping us get this grant through AAA. And we've been able to purchase 6 of these solar signs. We don't have them yet. We'll be putting them up, but, kind of focusing on the schools and the parks, and really another reminder for people to slow the heck down.
Oh, those really do work. My little guy in the back seat yells at me. He goes, Dad, it's blinking. It's blinking, Dad. He's the one who sees it because I'm the one who's not paying attention. But you're right. They are effective. Right. That's a great thing. So you hear it right there. This has been something going on for years. And I drive by those signs now. I think I see 2 of them in my drive in the morning back and forth taking my kid to school. And the amazing thing is, first off, this shows you how local government works because there is a problem and then there's a constant movement to fix the problem. And they really have done a really good job of reducing the issue, being pragmatic about finding out what works and what doesn't work. But you're still having to beg people to slow down. That's crazy to me. Listen, school's back. Driving the speed limit for a mile probably adds about 10 to 12 seconds to your journey. That gets negated if you hit the red light anyway. So be safe out there. The kids are back in school. Vote in the EP Podcast Battle of Evergreen Park. Have a wonderful week. And remember to subscribe to the EP Podcast anywhere podcasts can be found and always at the eppodcast.com.
It's the EP Podcast. All things Evergreen Park. It's the EP Podcast. Evergreen Park.